All right, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim to start, inshallah. So we had been working on Du'a al-stiftah. Let's just look at it really quick and just kind of recap what we had done. We did Du'a al-stiftah, and at least we did number 27, Allahumma ba'ad bayni wa bayna khatayay, subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik, and wajjahtu wajhi alladhi fatara as-samawati wal ard. We went in details with that one. And yesterday we did Allahumma Rabba Jibra'ila wa Mika'ila wa Israfil. We went in details with that one. And we also did Allahu Akbaru Kabira. And we left off at A'udhu Billahi min ash-shaitan min nafkhihi wa nafthihi wa hamzihi. Now we are pretty much at this one. Allahumma lakal hamd. Let me just just help you see what that looks like in English right there. اللهم لك الحمد أنت نور السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت قيم السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت رب السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد ملك السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت ملك السماوات والأرض ولك الحمد أنت الحق ووعدك الحق وقولك الحق ولقاؤك الحق والجنة حق والنار حق والنبيون حق ومحمد حق والساعة حق اللهم لك أسلمت وعليك توكلت وبك آمنت وإليك أنبت وبك خاصمت وإليك حاكمت فاغفر لي ما قدمت وما أخرت وما أسررت وما أعلنت أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر لا إله إلا أنت أنت إلهي لا إله إلا أنت. That is beautiful. Let's see. O Allah, to you belongs all the praise. You are the light of the heavens and the earth, and all that is within them. To you belongs all the praise. You are the sustainer of the heavens and the earth, and all that is within them. To you belongs all the praise. You are the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and all that is within them. To you belongs all the praise and the kingdom of the heavens and the earth and all that is within them. To you belongs all the praise. You are the King of the heavens and the earth, and to you belongs all the praise. You are the truth. Your promise is true. Your word is true. And the day in which we will encounter you is true. The day, or the garden of paradise is true, and the fire is true. And the prophets are true. Muhammad ﷺ is true, and the final hour is true. O Allah, unto you I have submitted, and upon you I have relied, and in you I had believed. And to you I have turned in repentance, and over you I have disputed. And to you I have turned for judgment. So forgive what has come to pass of my sins and what will come to pass. And what I had been hiding and what I have made public. You are the one to bring forth and the one to retract, or al-mu'akhir. None has the right to be worshipped except you. You are my deity. None has the right to be worshipped except you. And here he said, meaning al-muqaddim, Allah puts forward and favors whom he wills from amongst his creation, just as he defers and holds back whom he wills in accordance to his wisdom. Example, favoring man over the rest of creation, favoring prophets over the rest of mankind, favoring Muhammad ﷺ over the prophets and messengers. Okay, I mean, the translation was outstanding, to be honest. Let's just give it, I guess, some details, just so that we would connect with the words, okay, and really see those, the let's say, the intricate meanings right there. Let's see. Allahumma laka alhamd. Now, when you say laka, it's different than when than saying Alhamdulillah. Because when you say Allahumma lakal hamd, you're actually saying praise belongs to you. So the word laka actually means it belongs, okay, to you, that is. اللهم لك الحمد أنت نور السماوات والأرض أنت نور, you are the light of the heavens and the earth. What does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the light? And we talked about the word light before, and we said that there's the metaphorical light and there's the actual light. And we said that even in this life that we're living in, or at least, of course, the different lights that we were capable of experimenting, whether we're speaking about rays, we're talking about ultraviolet light, we're speaking about different kinds of lights and different kinds of rays, and some of it has the ability to transcend your body, just like when we're talking about X-rays, and some of those lights, or even the signal that would make you capable of hearing and basically using your phone, like the Wi-Fi is actually considered, yes, it's a wave, but a wave could also be used as a form of light, or another word for it would be light in Arabic. Okay, so when you say أنت نور السماوات والأرض, that is to tell us that what actually gives the power to bring about any energy within the world is basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is نور السماوات والأرض. He is the light of the heavens and the earth. Yet it's important to mention, we cannot call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala an energy, because to call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to call him an energy would actually be problematic, because energy comes to an end. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the eternal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is self-efficient, but energy basically has a certain point where, because it would continue to lose power, lose momentum, lose all of that, then we cannot call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as energy. It would be extremely dangerous to call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an energy, because we would have to use the words, the names, and the attributes and the descriptions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had described himself in. So here's one of them. أنت نور السماوات والأرض. You are the light of the heavens and the earth. ومن فيهن. Now I want you to look at the word من فيهن. Now, when you say men, it's different than the word ma, because the word ma, let me write that down, because the word ma would actually mean for something that is not a thinkable thing, not a thinkable creature, meaning some creature that does not have intellect. Okay, so when you say وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ, this is more focused on things that are thinkable creatures. So أنت نور السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن, you are the light of the heavens and the earth and what is in it from the thinkable creatures. In other words, right there, for us to understand that every living thing is actually dependent on the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ أَنْتَ قَيِّمُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And all the praise be to you, for you are the one, the word qayyim. I want to look at the word qayyim, because when you look at the word qayyim, right there, they translated it as sustainer, which is actually a very good translation. But I want to, I guess, go a little bit deeper. Remember the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. And then it says, لَهُ مَقَالِدُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ in Surah Al-Shura. When you look at لَهُ مَقَالِدُ, you're actually talking about that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically the one to give the power for everything to function. In other words, when things function, whether we're speaking about needing provision, or we're speaking about needing energy, or speaking about needing different things to keep it sustaining, then that situation, you're talking about أنت قيم السماوات والأرض, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what keeps everything running, what keeps everything standing, what keeps everything functioning, basically. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, وَلَكَ الْحَمْدِ, all the praise belongs to you. وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ, again, وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ, man fihin, meaning everything that is basically in the heavens and the earth are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَكَ الْحَمْدِ أنت رب السماوات والأرض, and all the praise is to you, for you are the Lord of the heavens and the earth. وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ, again, وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ, basically in everything that is in the heavens and the earth. وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ لَكَ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْض. Let's actually just put a couple lines right here. So in the beginning, أنت نور السماوات والأرض. The second one, قيم السماوات والأرض. The third one is رب السماوات والأرض. The fourth one is ملك السماوات والأرض. And then ملك السماوات والأرض. So what's the difference? I mean, the whole thing is pretty much going within the same area. So when you say نور السماوات والأرض, that's basically what gives it all the different force, all the different energy, what gives the light basically. قيم السماوات والأرض, what sustains it, what keeps it functioning. رب السماوات والأرض, what basically gives it as the Lord, what gives it shelter, what gives it caring, what gives it mercy, what gives it protection. That's basically Rabb. ملك السماوات والأرض, that's basically to mean that he has al-mulk. Al-mulk means ownership of. Okay, so he has the ownership of the heavens and the earth and everything there is. He is Malik. Malik is different than mulk, because mulk would mean ownership, but Malik would mean he is the king. Okay, he is the king. So when you see,
wouldn't mulk be kingdom?
It would be, but you could see in Lugha Arabiya, there are certain things that are really particular and very intricate words. So when you look at mulk, you're more talking about that you have the ownership of things, but al-Malik would be the king, more of authority. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you're talking about a malik, you're talking about, I guess, looking at it from the gives more the connotation of authority, gives more the first one, which is al-mulk, gives the authority of ownership, but al-malik gives the connotation of authority, of that power, that authority, the one to have at least.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You see it? So right, each one is looking at it from a different angle, but certainly they're really all to basically mean La ilaha illallah. Okay? They're all to mean La ilaha illallah. If you're saying La ilaha illallah, so these du'as are basically breaking down Tawheed for you. If I wanted to give a class of Tawheed, really, I would just give it through these du'as, and I would say, this is your class of Tawheed. It's that simple. Your class of Tawheed, just know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is نور السماوات والأرض, He's قيم السماوات والأرض, He's رب ملك السماوات والأرض, رب السماوات والأرض, ملك السماوات والأرض, and ملك السماوات والأرض, and you really would have the basis of the foundation of Tawheed. Tawheed is extremely simple. It's a very straightforward. There's no trinity. There's no hidden messages. It's pretty straightforward. So sometimes you would see certain du'as giving you, let's call it, further details, just to pretty much bring in a better clarification instead of a broad wording that many times will probably make certain people, I would say, take advantage of a broad term, even though it would be straightforward, but they would take advantage of that broad term and put in their own interpretation because they would feel it's broad. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give us detailed and broad adhkar or broad wordings for Tawheed in order to let us stay within the structure of how to keep our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, أنت الحق. Now I want you to look at this portion of the dua right there. Okay, this portion of the dua, it was really focusing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an essence. Okay, now it actually takes us into a little slight different path. أنت الحق, you are the truth. Now it's taking us, and I guess this is the speaking about the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, Tawheed is going to be talking about the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's talking about worship. And then it's talking about basically the names and attributes. Okay. So when it says أنت الحق, you are the truth. When you see the word that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth, there goes that al right there. Okay, that al right there. The al can mean an inclusive al and can also mean a comprehensive al. So we're talking about, well, okay, let me correct that. So inclusive to mean that includes different various things, but there's a specifying al, which is called al-hadiyya. So anta al-haq, this is to mean that one, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth. Okay, that doesn't mean that anything that is true is basically God, certainly not. Okay, but this is to mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth, and therefore anything in regards to the Lord Almighty is nothing but the truth. Okay, وَوَعْدُكَ الْحَقِّ, and what you had promised is true. When you say what he had promised, what did he promise? Well, he promised of a judgment day. He promised of hellfire. He promised of Jannah. He promised of accountability. He promised of justice. He promised of giving you provision. He promised to answer your dua, of course, if you had made the dua. He promised all those different things, and only on a condition that you would basically live what he had told you to live by. Okay, وَقَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ, and your words are true. وَلِقَاؤُكَ حَقِّ, and meeting you is true. Wait a minute, so قَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ, how is that different than وَعْدُكَ الْحَقِّ? الوعد is more the promise. قَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ, your words are true, whether this is outside of promise. So we're talking about قَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ, some words are not promises. So, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you about maybe Jannah. It's different than believing in Jannah than believing that he had promised those that would be living in piety that they would be granted Jannah. Okay, that's two different things. Okay, so we would say, well, وَعْدُكَ الْحَقِّ, your promise is true, and وَقَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ, and everything that you had said is true. So what are we doing right here? So in the first piece of it, in the first piece of the dua, there was that essence. Now we're connecting to the actual sharia, we're connecting to the words. So this would basically be a prelude to the second segment, which is embracing the second factor, or the second piece of Tawheed, which is worship, which is ubudiyya, which is submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why it starts out with somewhat of a prelude to connect with that definition of worship, which is you are the truth, and therefore your promises are true, your words are true, and meeting you is true, Jannah is true, hellfire is true, the prophets and the messengers are true, Muhammad ﷺ is true, and Judgment Day is true. Now, therefore, since all of these things, this is all the prelude right there, since all of these things are true, and I have complete faith in all of these, therefore, here we go, there's that semicolon. Allahumma laka aslamt. Therefore, my relationship with all of that, since I have complete faith in all of this, whether we're speaking about meeting you, Jannah, prophets, messengers, all of that, then therefore, here's a semicolon, Allahumma laka aslamt. Ya Allah, I submit myself to you. So what does the word Islam mean anyways? So the word Islam basically means to let go of everything. Okay, let go of everything. That's one meaning. Two, there's also to submit to something. But when you're saying submit, so does Islam actually tell you to be a submissive person? No, Islam actually tells you to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be free from submitting to your own whims, and be free from submitting to people, be free from submitting to your drives, and be free from submitting to perhaps the media, politics, whatever it is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically helping you be free by submitting to Him alone. So when you say Allahumma laka aslamt, it can mean the literal meaning to submit. It could also mean the wording, which basically the technical meaning to mean that you had embraced Islam. You had embraced the religion Islam. So in Lugha Arabiya, when you say أصبحت, أمسيت, it means to enter something. Okay? So أصبحت means I entered the timing of الصبح. أمسيت, it means I entered the timing of مساء, the timing of nighttime. أمصرت means I entered Misr, Egypt. Okay, so when you say aslamt, it can mean aslam to mean the verb, meaning I submit myself to you, and it can also mean that I had become Muslim. Okay, so two meanings, the technical meaning and also the conjugated meaning right there. Allahumma laka aslamt, I had submitted myself to you, or I had become Muslim to you. So whether you take it as that one. وَعَلَيْكَ تَوَكَّلْت. Therefore, my life, since I basically had practiced this as a faith that I would embrace, therefore, in the implication of what I would do, I would depend on you. عليك توكلت. What is التوكل? التوكل is different than التواكل. Let me write that down. So التوكل, I'm going to write that down. التوكل would basically mean that the person takes the necessary measurements, okay, to probably maybe study, to probably, hey, do the necessary effort to get a job probably, or maybe get cure and seek treatment and probably get to the doctor's office and all of that and take the medications as given based on the doctor's prescription, etc. That's tawakkul. I would take the necessary measurements, and then at the end I recognize that it's not the medication that gives me the treatment, that it's not my studying that leads to that success, and it's not necessarily the effort and the job that I would go for that's necessarily giving me the risk, but I would recognize that that's my effort, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had basically structured this world. You put in effort, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give you multiple at least provisions in return. Let's do it. Let's put it into practice. You put one seed in the ground and the seed basically grows into a complete tree. You put one seed and you got a whole tree. You put one seed and you probably got a whole bush, and you probably got, who knows, you put in probably just one piece of those old potatoes and you would get probably many more potatoes. You put in probably 3 seeds and you got a whole bush of probably tomatoes or well, eggplant or whatever it is, or probably apples and oranges, whatever it is. And that's the same thing. You put in, so your risk is actually not coming by the effort that you would sow, but it is actually coming by one. You put in the effort, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised you, if you put in the effort, that He will cultivate that effort to make it grow. Even farther. So if in this dunya, on this earth, you were to plant one seed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you multiple provisions, that's the same thing. How is it with al-Jannah? You put in a small effort, probably dhikr, maybe birr al-walidain, perhaps being good to your parents, perhaps maybe putting in a small effort to probably donation, charity, or maybe memorizing the Quran, etc. You put in a small effort, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises you to get you jannatin tajri min tahtiha al-anhar. Not one, but many gardens with water flowing from underneath it. Okay, just like in dunya. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is letting you see the pattern in this life that if you were to put in a small effort, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cultivate that effort and make it something bigger than what you had actually really invested. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Waqi'ah basically tells us, well, are you really the one that brings life to أأنتم أفرأيتم ما تمنون أأنتم تخلقونه أم نحن الخالقون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell you in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, you see the semen, for example. Are you the one that makes it turn into human being? You see the fire. You see the seeds. Are you the one that's really bringing the seed into a big creation or a big tree? Are you أنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون? Who's actually the one that's making this? Who put the law within this nature to make that seed actually function in a certain way and then grow and then seek water and then basically those different laws that basically we would know that would make the plants actually grow. So you would root on the inside, and it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting that whenever you would see a tree, what's actually deeper down. So the bigger the tree up, the farther its roots are in the ground. Okay, the farther its roots are underground. That's the same thing. You have to think of this. The farther you want to go up in your, let's say, steadfastness, you have to build a strong ground within your roots. What roots? The roots of your faith, the roots of your ilm, and therefore you really have to dig deep down and get the water or get the nutrients, and that's basically going to be your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in terms of tawheed. He said that أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. That, what is it? He said, well, in terms of tawheed, أصلها ثابت. Its basis, its roots are basically connecting to the ground, and you would see the rest of the branches would be going out. فرعها في السماء. The trunk is the tree trunk is basically something that you would be seeing, but the truth of the matter is that what keeps that tree standing is really the deeper the roots, the stronger the tree going up. Okay. عليك توكلت وبك آمنت. I depend on you. And I forgot to mention التواكل. What is التواكل? التواكل is different because التواكل would be you probably want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you victory, but you don't want to put the effort. You want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to probably, you made the dua, Ya Allah, let me get an A on this test, but you didn't even study. That's tawakkul. You wanted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you this, but you didn't get a job. How's that going to happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, no. فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. You've got to put the effort. فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. And that's how you will get the risk. You've got to walk. You've got to plant. You've got to get a job. You've got to put the effort. But don't expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to basically give you everything. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted you to put the effort. And he will basically harvest, or at least he will cultivate that effort for you and make it something, bring something in return for you. وَبِكَ آمَنْتَ. And I believed in you. What is faith? So faith is a couple of things. Faith can be one, what your heart and your mind are basically believing in. Believing in what? So believing in, let's take it back, believing in one about, well, who makes this, the heavens and the earth, who's keeping things together, who's the Lord, who has the ownership of the world, who's basically the one to have authority, who's basically giving the word of truth. What is the word of truth? What do you believe about Jannah? What do you believe about hellfire? What do you believe about the prophets? What do you believe about Muhammad ibn Abdullah? What do you believe in regards to all of that? So that's amant. So now you're taking in that conclusion. لَكَ آمَنْتَ وَبِكَ آمَنْتَ. And I believed in you. What is faith? Faith is what your mind and your heart basically believe in terms of all of the things that we had mentioned. And two, il-iman, it's not enough to believe in something, but you have to make that really be something that controls your drives. hey, you probably had the drive to, I don't know, eat your pack of chips, okay, during the day of Ramadan. It was such a strong drive, okay? And such a strong drive. But then what do? You recognize that if I am to be patient, if I stay patient and not eat my pack of chips, for example, during the day of Ramadan, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for this amount of patience that I had basically planted, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give me Jannah. Okay? So that's basically that type of plantation. لك وبك آمنت is one, faith in the inside. And of course, this faith is basically that faith that you would put on ground, that you would implement. It's not enough to just have it on the inside, but you must put it on in practice. وإليك أنبت. What is أنبت? Al-inaba is basically returning, but this is not talking about returning, meaning returning in death. No, ilayka anabt, meaning that I would return, I would submit my behavior to you. I would submit my drives to you. I would submit all the things that I control to you. In other words, I embrace your principles completely. وَبِكَ خَاصَمْ. وَبِكَ خَاصَمْ. What is الخصومة? الخصومة is in dispute, okay, fighting, okay? So وَبِكَ, meaning through you, meaning what? My disputes and remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet ﷺ, وَهْجُرْهُمْ, there are certain people. He tells them, you gotta abandon, basically just leave these people. هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا, in a way that is beautiful. In other words, وَهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. You don't do it in a way to basically lose them forever, but you keep that relationship, at least if that person decides that they would be coming back to give a chance and listen to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and probably submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you would actually come for that. So when you say وَبِكَ خَاصَمْت, whether we're speaking about a dispute, or whether we're speaking about a fight, or whether we're speaking about keeping distances and boundaries with certain people, that's وَبِكَ خَاصَمْت. That's what it would mean, that I would basically keep my distances from the different things that surround me, whether we're speaking about people, whether we're speaking about individuals. At the end, all the different disputes, all the different enemies, or all those different distances that I would keep is all really based on the center, because I am keeping you as the center, and therefore anything that contradicts the orbit that I am trying to be in putting you at the center, if that is a person that contradicts what you want me to practice, what I would believe in, then I would rather keep a distance away from all the people, even if that was a man that I probably loved, or a woman that I loved, or a friend that I really click with their sense of humor or whatever. I'm willing to give up on all the people and just keep one connection, which is you, O Lord Almighty, as my main connection. If someone is contradicting and someone is basically being an anti to all the different things that you regarded as truth, I'm basically going to keep the distance, because I am living my life based on you, and therefore anything that would come in and disrupt my relationship with you, I would basically give up on that relationship, but maintain my relationship with you, Ya Allah. وَإِلَيْكَ حَاكَمْتَ. And what is إِلَيْكَ حَاكَمْتَ? And I would basically judge based on you. So in case, for example, I had a dispute between me and my brother, between me and my sister, I would basically turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would say, well, if Islam says this, then hey, even if I may not like necessarily the answer, may not like that it's not giving me probably the fulfillment of my interest, but as long as Islam says that I don't have the right to take this, and this belongs to, for example, my brother and not me, and this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had distributed, for example, the inheritance, or probably distributed rights, and yes, certainly, well, so how is it, and why do I have to obey my husband? Maybe he could be the one to obey me, and etc. But no, I would basically submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He is the one that ruled. الرجال قوامون على النساء. That's it. وما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم. It does not befit for a believing man and a believing woman, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees any matter, that they would put their own opinion on top of it. So that's why إليك حاكمت. You would be the one whenever I basically have probably differences of opinions, or I'm not sure about anything, or probably I'm confused about a certain judgment, or perhaps I'm not confused about a certain judgment, but I would still regard that your ruling is going to be the finalizing ruling, and I would take it as basically what defines justice. فاغفر لي ما قدمت. Now comes the dua. So all of that we had said, what would we be doing right there? That was more of an introduction, more of, warming you in relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just like in Surah Al-Fatiha, if you look at Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, it's giving you all those wordings. It's giving you all that prelude and letting you feel that relationship, that embracement with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you would make the dua. And then make the dua, which is in the end, of course, coming from Surah Al-Fatiha, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. There comes the dua right there. Okay, so when you look at this one, same thing, it did the same exact thing. After letting you build that connection with the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then finally it basically told you now you could make the dua, now that you recognize the essence, the power, and the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you would say, فَغَفِرْ لِي مَا قَدَّمْتُ وَمَا أَخَّرْتُ. So forgive me of what I had basically, ما قدمت. What is ما قدمت? What I had already, of course, committed before. وَمَا أَخَّرْتُ, and what I did not yet commit those sins, but it's going to happen. So I would make the dua to forgive me from the sins that I had committed before, and the sins that I might commit in the future. وَمَا أَسْرَرْتُ, and the sins that I had committed in private, and the sins that I had committed in public. أنت المقدم. How did we get there? And why did it say أنت المقدم? What does that mean? So أنت المقدم means you put forward. أنت المؤخر means you take back. لا إله إلا أنت. Well, that one. So how did we get there? Why أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر? Because that moment that you connect and recognize your sins, you're recognizing that your sins could take you back, and your good deeds can put you forward. In other words, people's ranks are not going to be based on money, and they're not going to be based on the positions, but they're going to be based on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Him basically putting those ranks and giving those ranks to people. So remember how we said we're speaking about different levels of people, and speaking about the amount of effort that they might have put in. So I don't know what Elon Musk had put in terms of effort to get this kind of money. Okay, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had told us that if a person puts in a certain effort, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give him basically multiples of that, whether it's a believer or a disbeliever. Even if it's a disbeliever that probably did the right proper management or probably had done a certain research or put in a certain effort, etc. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from his adl, from his justice, even if it's not a Muslim, even if it's an animal that's basically flying to search for seeds or putting in effort, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that they would get the rizq if they would basically put the effort. Okay, and that's basically coming in with that. Even if it's a kafir, you put in an effort, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you basically the cultivation for that effort and basically give you something in return. Okay, so أنت المقدم, that's to remind us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the true one to bring forth anyone. Al-Muqaddam, whether we're speaking about giving people positions, or whether it's giving people provisions or probably successes and the different kinds of successes, that's only coming through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not my effort that brings the rizq, but it's actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brings the rizq. It's actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brings success. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brings happiness. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brings life. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brings death. So when you look at al-mu'akhir, and wait a minute, so how is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is contradictory? He's muqaddam and he's mu'akhir. Isn't that contradictory that he brings forth and he takes back? It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is letting you know that he basically is encompassing all the different things that surround you. Encompassment is what those names and attributes that may sound contradictory. Al-awwal, al-akhir, the first and the last, al-zahir wal-batin, the one that is apparent and the one that is hidden, the one that is al-muqaddam and al-mu'akhir. So that's in order to show encompassment, al-ihata. He's encompassing all the powers that you see around you, whether those that had basically come forward, those that had been al-mu'izz, those that were granted some form of honor, and al-mudhil, and those that were basically dishonored. Okay, so dishonored those that basically did not deserve the honor, or gave the honor to those that deserved the honor, or perhaps sometimes not necessarily deserve. Sometimes it's a test. Trump, it's a test for him, and to test his arrogance and test his name Trump and how far Trump and his allies and his basically his arrogance and how far it would go. And it's also to test the mu'mineen. Are they going to succumb to such arrogance? Are they going to succumb to such injustice? Or what exactly will they be doing? Okay, so أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر, and you're the one that brings people back. So just to let us know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the center. So when you see things going different, hey, once upon a time, the Muslim empires were in the forefront, were in the lead. Right now, what happened when we let go of our Islam? We basically had become the ones to be colonized, the ones under the Western imperialism, the ones under the colonization and so forth. And what do we end up with? We're basically right there. We're basically held back. La ilaha illa ant. There's no God worthy of worship but you. Anta ilahi. Now, the word ilah is different than the word Rabb. We talked about that before, so we're not going to go in details with that. Anta ilahi, you are my Lord. There is no Lord but you. I'm going to read this one, inshallah, and then we'll end it for today. Allahumma lakal hamd. Anta nuru samawati wal ard. ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت قيم السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت رب السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد لك ملك السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت ملك السماوات والأرض ولك الحمد أنت الحق ووعدك الحق وقولك الحق ولقاؤك الحق والجنة حق والنار حق والنبيون حق ومحمد حق اللهم لك أسلمت وعليك توكلت وبك آمنت وإليك أنبت وبك خاصمت وإليك حاكمت فاغفر لي ما قدمت وما أخرت وما أسررت وما أعلنت أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر لا إله إلا أنت أنت إلهي لا إله إلا أنت. Should we do this again? Let's do this again and then you guys can repeat, right? Like we promised. Okay, let me just make sure that we've got a clear board right there. Okay, we're going to do this together. Okay, and Allahumma laka alhamd. Allahumma laka alhamd. أنت نور السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن. اللهم لك الحمد أنت نور السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن. اللهم لك الحمد أنت نور السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت قيم السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت قيم السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت رب السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت رب السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد لك الملك ولك الحمد لك ملك السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد لك ملك السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد لك ملك السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت ملك السماوات والأرض ولك الحمد ولك الحمد أنت ملك السماوات والأرض ولك الحمد أنت الحق أنت الحق ووعدك الحق أنت الحق ووعدك الحق وقولك الحق ولقاؤك الحق ولقاؤك الحق والجنة حق والنار حق ووعدك الحق وقولك الحق ولقاؤك الحق والجنة حق ووعدك الحق وقولك الحق ولقاؤك الحق والجنة حق والنار حق. Remember, حق means truth. والنبيون حق ومحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم حق والساعة حق. اللهم لك أسلمت اللهم لك أسلمت وعليك توكلت وعليك توكلت وبك آمنت وبك آمنت وإليك أنبت وإليك أنبت وبك خاصمت وبك خاصمت وبك خاصمت وإليك حاكمت وإليك حاكمت فاغفر لي ما قدمت وما أخرت فاغفر لي ما قدمت وما أخرت وما أسررت وما أسررت وما أعلنت وما أسررت وما أعلنت أنت المقدم أنت المقدم أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر وأنت المؤخر لا إله إلا أنت لا إله إلا أنت أنت إلهي لا إله إلا أنت. Let's go right there. You could see this was a dua that was narrated by Bukhari and Muslim as well. So can't get more authentic than that. Okay. So if there's anybody that would like to read it before we end, go ahead.
Okay. Can I read it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. اللهم لك الحمد أنت نور السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت قيم السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد okay. أنت قيم السماوات والأرض وما فيهن ولك الحمد أنت رب السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد لك ملك السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن ولك الحمد أنت ملك السماوات والأرض.
So this one is mulk, this one is malik.
Yes.
Mulk means owner, okay? Ownership of something, the ownership of the heavens and the earth, and malik means the authority and the king.
Mulk, the ownership, Malik, the authority or the king.
Yes.
Yes. Let me repeat that one. وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ أَنْتَ مَلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ أَنْتَ الْحَقُّ ووعدك الحق وقولك الحق ولقاؤك الحق والجنة حق والنار الحق ونبيون حق ومحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم حق والساعة حق اللهم لك أسلمت وعليك توكلت وبك آمنت وإليك أنبت وبك خصمت وإليك حاكمت فاغفر لي ما قدمت وما أخرت وما أسررت وما أعلنت أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر لا إله إلا أنت إله لا إله إلا
My Lord.
إلهي أنت إلهي لا إله إلا أنت.
Good job. So I want you to see something here. No one asked this question. Let's look at it. I want you to look at this one. You see the al right there when it talked about قولك الحق ولقاؤك الحق, etc. But when it said al-Jannah, it didn't use an al here, right? It didn't use an al here. It didn't use an al here. It didn't use an al here. So what's the difference? When it said وَوَعْدُكَ الْحَقِّ, or of course we're going to be connecting that one, وَوَعْدُكَ الْحَقِّ, that means your words are the ultimate, or your promises are the ultimate truth and the ultimate basically promise. In other words, there's that ultimate piece of, in other words, there's no other truth. وَقَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ, there's no other truth other than your words. They're basically the ultimate truth. لِقَاؤُكَ الْحَقِّ, meaning meeting you is the ultimate truth. الْجَنَّةُ حَقِّ. Now, why did it say al-Jannatu haq, not al-Jannatul haq? Because when you say al-Jannatul haq, okay, it would not actually be proper. So you would say al-Jannatu haq, meaning Jannah is true. Okay, so but not the ultimate truth, because there are other truths. There's also hellfire is true. You're right. So there are other truths. There's hellfire is true. But if you were to say al-Jannatul haq, that would mean it's the ultimate. But of course,
that means there will not be anything else except Jannah. Right.
So Jannah is true, hellfire is true, but the messengers and the prophets are true. So there are multiple truths in basically those in terms of what is actually true, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words are the ultimate truth. Meeting him is the ultimate meeting. The promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're the ultimate promises. Okay. Anta al-haq, he is the ultimate truth. So the al would basically mean the ultimate. Okay. But of course, Jannah is not necessarily the ultimate truth because there are other truths.
Dr. Aisha, the same
Yes.
thing applicable to وَالنَّبِيُّ وَالنَّبِيُّونَ حَقًّا, because
Well,
there's
no.
no al there, al in that
Oh,
place.
here it is. وَالنَّبِيُّونَ. This al, this is talking about and the prophets, Okay. So this is putting in basically that al right there, that there are certain prophets that, well, there are prophets that we would believe in al-nabiyun. So this al right here would basically include, it would be an inclusive al, whether we're speaking about Prophet Ibrahim, Nuh, Isa alayhi salam, etc. Those would be included within the al.
Okay.
An-nabi, all the
What
prophets.
about the haqq? There's no
Haqq,
haqq there.
because they are true. We're speaking about, they're basically true. So you're talking about prophets and messengers, etc. They're true. There were prophets and messengers that were sent. That's true. I believe it. Okay.
Yeah. Inshallah.
Because if you were to say وَالنَّبِيُّونَ al-haq, that would actually mean there are false prophets.
Oh.
He can't be a false prophet. He's either a prophet or an imposter. Okay. If you were to say وَالنَّبِيُّونَ al-haq, that means there are nabiyun that are
I guess.
you
MashaAllah.
wouldn't be a nabi.
Yeah.
You can't, that would be an oxymoron. If you were to say an-nabiyuna al-haq, that would also give the inference that there are an-nabiyun that are basically not true. But how is it that there's no way. A prophet is supposed to be infallible. He can't be a lying prophet. Okay?
Okay.
He can't be a lying prophet. That would be an oxymoron. So, وَالنَّبِيُّونَ حَقٌّ, all the prophets and the messengers are basically true. Okay? An imposter is an imposter. He's not a false prophet. He's an imposter. Okay?
No.
Because, it's like saying this person is tall, short. What do you mean tall, short? That's an oxymoron. So if you were to say a false prophet in Islam, all prophets are basically haq. Okay? But an imposter is not a prophet. So I hope I answered that one. This is it, inshallah, for today. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Yes, it is actually a beautiful dua. So we'll see you all.
MashaAllah, it is. Jazakillah khair.
Wa iyyakum.